All content discussed on Hypochondriactor are the individual opinions of Dr. Priyanka, Wali, and Sean Hayes and should not be construed as personalized medical advice. I mean, come on, please. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. Please consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast.
My name is Dr. Priyanka Wali, and I'm a licensed and practicing physician who also happens to be a touring stand-up comedian.
Hi, I'm Sean Hayes, and I'm an actor. And if that weren't exciting enough, I'm also a bit of a hypochondriac. Some say there's not too much more to me than those two things, to which I agree.
Each episode, Sean and I will talk about his medical fears and bring on a guest with an incredible medical story and discuss the outcome.
We'll also play games, quiz each other on medical history, and learn a few things.
All in an effort to marry comedy and medicine.
I think it's safe to say that I'm not America's first hypochondriac, but I am America's first hypochondriactor.
All right.
Hi, Priyanka.
Hey, Sean.
Isn't this exciting?
This is super exciting. I've wanted to do something like this for so long.
I know, me too. Dr. Priyanka, Wali, I have a show with a doctor and you have a show with a dumb actor who thinks that everything's been wrong with him. I've been obsessed with medical stories my whole life. I was a huge David Letterman fan, and he used to love it when I would come on and tell medical stories or a guest would come on. I'm fascinated with crazy medical stories, as so many people are, I hope. And I feel like I've had everything wrong with me. So I can't wait to get free advice from my friend, Dr. Priyanka Wali, that nobody else should take. Because if you listen to our disclaimer again, it's just between me and Priyanka.
Exactly. I mean, if people can learn a thing or two in the process, then my job here is done.
So, Priyanka, I'm super, super excited. This is our first show ever. I can't believe we finally got this thing off the ground. And what better way to kick off the whole podcast than with Will Arnett? He's seriously the funniest person on the face of the planet, and he's a very, very good dear friend of mine. I've known him forever. We're going to talk about his medical ailments that include his love for the sauna and cold plunge, like hot, cold. I can't even stand lukewarm. But anyway, first, I have something I need you to help me with, because let's be honest, this is the real reason I'm doing the show, is kind of to talk to you about all the crazy things that have happened to me. I get like free medical advice every single episode. So, Priyanka, this is years and years and years and years ago. I have a deviated septum, and I had a little bump on my nose, on the left side of my nose. You can Google pictures of it. You can kind of see it. Anyway, to me, it was a big deal, and I wanted to get rid of it. So I kind of went to a doctor in Beverly Hills for a twofer. I was like, I need my deviated septum fixed, and while you're down there, can you shave off the little bump on the left side of my nose? And he's like, he's drooling. He's like, oh my God, of course I could do that. Sure. So I go in, I put under, I wake up with all that packing in your nose afterwards.
Yeah.
And I go home, and it's kind of hellish, recouping from that on the couch. You can't really breathe.
Yeah.
But then, 3 days later, a week later, I can't remember, you go back and they take the packing out, which is so satisfying and also disgusting, because you'd think they'd stick, 75 feet of packing all the way up your nose. It just keeps coming out for days. But anyway, then when you're done, they give you this oil. He gave me this oil drops or whatever to lube the inside of my nose, which I did, and would kind of run down, and then it looked like I was eating greasy chicken. Right?
Oh, wow.
Just
God,
all over
that's
my...
hot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really attractive. So I go back to the doctor because he has to kind of clear out the mucus, blood, scabbing, and the goop, so you could breathe, right? And so, but this particular doctor had a little bit of a fetish, I think, and he had this flat iron screwdriver tool where he would chip away at all the stuff in my nose, and he was just loving it. And one hit too hard, and it hit like an artery or like a blood vessel or something, and I gushed blood. It was disgusting. And I don't mean like a water faucet. I mean like a bathtub faucet.
Oh my.
I was choking on my own blood. Couldn't swallow it fast enough. He's screaming at me. He's like, you need to calm down. You need to calm. He's trying to calm my heart down so I could stop pumping all this blood, right? And I'm like, you calm down. There's blood all over your office, and it's mine. It's not yours. So he's like, so he yells to the person. He's like, get the operating table ready. It was down the hall. I was like, wait, what? And which made me freak out more. I ran down the hallway with this nurse and this guy. He put me down on the table. Like he cauterized it while I was awake. It was awful. Anyways, it worked. Thank God. And then he had to pack it again. And here we are.
Okay, there's so many layers to this story here. First of all, I'm really sorry that happened to you.
Thank you. I feel like it's partly your fault.
As a medical provider, I apologize on behalf of the medical community that you had this weird situation.
Yeah, I mean, I could have died. I could have bled to death if it didn't cauterize, right?
Yeah, it sounds to me like he nicked the artery that gives blood supply to the septum. It's called the greater palatine artery, not to be confused with Palpatine, like Emperor Palpatine.
From Star Wars.
But yeah, no, that's a common artery. I mean, they write studies about how you have to be really careful that if that artery gets nicked, you got to cauterize it. That's kind of what is advised. So it sounds like, I'm glad that you didn't have to go back to the OR and he was just able to cauterize that. But I mean, that just sounds like a really traumatic experience altogether.
Because I swallowed so much of the blood too.
Oh.
Either spitting it out all over the place or trying to swallow it because I didn't want to keep spitting it up. Because I don't know, it was crazy. Now, would that have affected that artery for the rest of my life? Like, do I still have to be careful about blowing my nose or whatever?
Probably not. Once he cauterized it, then you should be fine.
That's it.
I'm curious, do you breathe better now?
No, because he never really did it.
Oh, well, this is just a great ad for this doctor.
It's the worst. That's why I would never say his name, but but you can still see it. Can you see it? Do you see how my nose goes in like that?
I mean, your nose looks pretty perfect to me. It's hard for me to see from this zoom angle.
That's kind of what I was looking for.
Oh, there we go. Okay, nice and close.
Yeah.
This is like a very private moment we're having right now, Sean, between you and me.
Well, I'm glad it wasn't a story about my penis.
Well, that'll be the next episode,
that would be coming in you strong on the Zoom, and you'd be like, I got it.
It's a bit much for a first episode. I feel comfortable dealing with the nose orifice only that orifice for the first time. But when you say your septum was deviated, were you having like deviated septum symptoms, like stuffy nose, trouble breathing?
Look at me breathe in. Watch. Only one side goes in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I can only air through there. So anyway, I'm fine. It doesn't really bother me. I was just like to breathe out of that side of my nose.
Right.
And that's kind of what I paid for, but I didn't get it.
Well, you definitely got more than you paid for sure.
Yeah, I would never do it again, right? I shouldn't go back.
I mean, yeah. It sounds like you got a nose job and a near-death experience too, so that you really did get.
Yeah, they tagged that on to the end of the bill.
But at the same time, I think it's important to remember, like, you survived, right? You made it. You're here. You're breathing.
Yeah.
Do you get like spontaneous nosebleeds that are gushing blood? No,
never. Do you recommend people fixing deviated septums or just kind of living with it?
Many people have deviated septums and it's fine. If you're having symptoms like, your nose is getting really stuffed up or you're having trouble breathing, like you're, waking up in the night without being able to breathe or you can't sleep because of that and your nose always feels stuffy, then, you could get checked out by a doctor. But a lot of people have crooked septums and they go about their business. They have no problems. So.
I mean, a doctor gave me like a year ago. He's like, try these breathe right strips, right? And you put them over the top of your nose. And it's kind of unbelievable. Completely opens your passageways. But then you rip it off. And I'm like, well, I can't do this every night. So what is this? What's the point?
So then you just got the nose job instead?
No. This is like a year ago that I got the breathe right strips. Yeah, because I was like, I wanted to feel what it would like to be able to breathe out of that side.
Yeah. Well, what happened to the bump? Are you happy with at least how the bump?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He totally fixed the bump. Yeah. On that side. But anyway, look, no more talk about my nose. Who cares about my nose? I want to talk to our guest, Will Arnett.
Okay.
Are you so excited?
Yes, I'm totally excited. Let's bring Will on.
Priyanka, my God, your name in Scrabble would be a fortune. You're going to love our guest today. Super excited. He's a great friend of mine. I love him so much. He's an actor, producer, and Canadian, not to be confused with comedian. A multiple Emmy Award nominee known for his roles in Arrested Development, BoJack Horseman. He's been in tons of TV shows and movies. He's also one of my co-hosts on our podcast with Jason Bateman called Smartless, but he's probably most well known for voicing the role of Elsa in Frozen. Please welcome my good friend, Will Arnett.
Let it go. Let it
Let
go.
it go.
Yay.
Hi.
So, Will, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me on the show. What's the format?
It's a medical show. So,
Yeah.
I'm the doctor and Sean is
Nothing.
The patient.
Yeah.
and
pretty much nothing.
you talk about whatever medical condition or situation that you want to.
Right, because I've been obsessed with medical stories forever because I have had everything, I feel like, or I think I have everything. That's the title of the show, Hypochondriactor. I understand you had a problem with a certain body part called your knee.
Oh, thank God you said that. Yes.
So wait, tell us about that.
Well, first, can I just ask you, just before we get into the meat of it, and whatever I had happen with my knee is on a need to know basis.
I can't. We'll just cut those out. We'll probably cut those out.
We're keeping that.
Keep it and loop it. Do you suffer from what do they call it? The Baron von Munchausen? It's not that. But Munchausen, do you have that sort of thing, Sean? I think you do, where somebody describes a medical condition and then you start going, do I have that?
By the way, yeah. I mean, or even on TV, I'll Google late at night. Somebody will be like, this is, all those ads for all those pharmaceuticals. You're like, wait, maybe I have that. I do it constantly.
Yeah, I mean, I do it too. Med school was hell for me because of that. I mean, every week, I remember derm week, I was itching the whole time. Like, my whole body was just itching and scratching derm week.
Well, what were you doing derm week?
Derm week, just doing derm rushes, everything, just lots of drinking kegs and stuff. It was derm week is so sick.
Derm rushes. Okay, wait, tell us about your knee.
So my knee is my right knee. First of all, my left knee, I fractured my patella when I was like 18 playing hockey.
Yeah, me too.
You did too.
Yeah, I was like safeguard or whatever.
Sure. And so that happened, but it was kind of a clean break. And there's nothing you can do about that except for let it heal. So it was kind of in a brace for 6 weeks or whatever it was. And that kind of sucked.
And then it just heals like any other bone.
It just feels like any other bone. It was dumb because I was just playing like pickup hockey with friends. And then a bunch of guys I saw we were waiting for the ice to get clean. I saw a bunch of guys that were smoking some weed. Yeah. Which I don't condone.
Mm-hmm.
But okay. I saw them, and I can imagine that might make you kind of loopy and then do dumb things. I'm not saying I did. I'm just saying that can happen.
Yeah, no, sure.
Got it.
Do you condone it now?
Oh, yeah, of course. 24%.
Of course.
By the way, I've kept the ringer on my phone just in case I get an important call.
Sure, I get it.
Perfect. Great.
So, but then what happened was, I think over the years, I developed, okay, well, Priyanka, here's my deal. I'm a little bit lopsided, and I think that I make up for a lot of stuff. Like I have like weird hip stuff, and then knee stuff. And anyway, it all culminated with my knee taking on the bulk of that pressure, or my misalignment, as it were. Mm-hmm. And eventually, one day, I was like pedaling a bike. I'm like, wow, I got no power in.
And it was a tricycle, right?
And it was a trike, yeah. Did I already say that? God, I feel like sometimes I just say things I don't even know. And then. So I went to see this guy, and he's like, oh, yeah, your MCL is shot. And I was like, what?
So you didn't do anything specific to do it?
Well, I had also, this is so embarrassing. This is almost as embarrassing as Sean and our friend Jason. Remember when he hurt his finger, and we were like, what happened?
Oh, yeah.
And he was like in a thing, and he had it taped up, and he injured his finger taking his golf clubs out of his Tesla.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, tweet that. It's so relatable. And then, but I think the final sort of thing that broke the camel's back for me with my knee was I was trying to hit some golf balls too hard, like repeatedly, trying to muscle it. And just that turning, just that action on it.
How long ago was it?
That was in 2016.
Wow.
So I realized, I was like, oh man, this thing I got no power. I can't really, it can't take any load like at certain points, and you can kind of get your way through it, but it was just uncomfortable. So I went and saw this doctor here in LA, and he said, we need to repair that. And I was about to go back to work, and he said, okay, well, we can do it, in 4 days or whatever it was. And I went in and I had it done.
Wow. So no PT, no physical therapy. You just went straight to the surgery?
So I had physical therapy. Here's a funny thing. So a week after that, I was supposed to go and do this series Unfortunate Events with Barry Sonnenfeld, who's a great director and a crazy guy and a friend of mine, just an awesome dude. And I called him and I said, listen, Barry, I can't come up to Vancouver to do this thing because I got to go have my knee done. And he's like, you're going to be fine. Come on up. And I said, honestly, I can't. I'm having knee surgery. And it'll be a week later. And he said, it's fine. We'll ice it, and then I'll have all your blocking. You'll be sitting down, and you won't have to stand up.
He's like, knee surgery, pee surgery. It's all the same. Just chill.
So he coerced me, and I went up to Vancouver, and I shot this stuff, and I couldn't move, and I had to it was such a freaking pain because my knee was killing me. I was icing it and doing all this stuff and everything, and I got through it. So the whole time I watched that thing, I'm in the end scene of all these episodes, and the whole time I'm just in total pain. The first time I walked without crutches, I had this little makeshift cane they gave me where I'm kind of going down this long sort of tunnel. And it was the first time I'd walked without crutches on camera.
Wow.
Wow. And were you doing physical therapy while you were filming too, or no?
So no, because that was a week after. Then I got back. I started physical therapy, but then I started doing the second season of my show, Flaked. And of course, in that I had to ride my bike a lot, and I also had to do a couple scenes where I had to run after this guy. And I did all of that way too early.
Jeez, yeah.
Because I had to. If I didn't do it, then nobody, I had to do it.
I mean, it was true acting, though, that you did, because you were in excruciating pain.
Excruciating pain.
Because I tore my, I don't know, Priyanka, they say meniscus. Is that the same thing?
Depending on which meniscus, there's a medial meniscus or a lateral meniscus, but the MCL, medial collateral ligament, is very close to the meniscus. So sometimes people that tear their MCLs also damage their meniscus as well.
Yeah.
But, Will, your twisting story about the golfing, it checks out because most MCL injuries happen by some kind of twisting kind of movement. Yeah, so.
Right, and then the guy was saying that it's probably, you're going to get wear and tear as you get older.
Right.
So it was probably already worn down by the way that I overcompensated for other things, but that motion kind of finally did it. Yeah, go ahead.
Right.
When you twisted, did you also shout?
Did I twist? No. You know what I did? When I finally twisted and I shouted, I did. Yeah. And it wasn't my meniscus. It was very close. I just menisced it.
God bless America.
We're really squeezing these ones. The MCL tear, it's the most common knee injury in athletes, but you're saying you weren't an athlete. You were just kind of messing around, right? Or were you an athlete?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, you can't see, obviously, the full frame.
Don't feed the beast. Do not feed the beast.
Sean, 1 second. Priyanka and I are having a conversation. You can't see the full chassis, but let me just say this.
Chassis is so gross.
If this were the 1930s, I would be considered an athlete. Yes, for sure. If this were the 1930s, I would have been an Olympian in the 1930s.
Got it.
But wait, Will, I want to know. So does it affect you now? How does it affect you now? Did you compensate for the injury and that affected something else? Did that turn into something else?
No, for the first time last week, I run on a treadmill because I'm trying to be careful, so that seems to have less impact. And then I do this long walk. Sean, you know my long walk I always do, or I talk about it or whatever. And just last week, for the first time, I had a little bit of discomfort. It was a little bit of swelling. I'd been doing it too much, probably. So I took it easy, but it's quite manageable. Part of my routine now, Priyanka, is I do cold plunge every day. Here at
like an ice bath?
Yeah. Like the like the Wim Hof stuff.
No, at his house he has a freaking tub that right, and then but he has it right next to the sauna. Yeah. So right, I don't understand that. What does that do to the body, and why do you do that?
Well, there's a lot of kind of science. It's called cold thermogenesis, and essentially, when you lower your body's body temperature, certain physiologic changes, beneficial changes, age protective changes start to occur.
Can't you just sit in front of a fan? I mean, why do you have to plunge into a cold?
No, there's something about the ice that it's about really lowering your core body temperature. And there's a whole like organization, Wim Hof, that they swear by it. I've tried doing it, and
yeah, I don't need to try to do that.
It's a bit much for me. But how long have you been doing that, Will?
So like I'm not a full-fledged student of the Wim Hof sort of school of whatever, but I do adhere to the cold water stuff, and I've tried to start to do the breathing stuff as well. Sean, this guy Wim Hof is fascinating, and there are millions of people, or thousands at least, people around the world who adhere to this. He's a guy who he'll go to like Finland, and they'll cut a hole in the ice, and he'll get in the water for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
but that can't be good for your heart and everything.
And then he goes to this hospital in the Netherlands where he's from.
Yes.
And he did his breathing, and they injected him with Priyanka, maybe you know this, like.
So yeah, I love this story because it kind of defies like what I've been taught. So this guy, Wim, he goes to the hospital and they inject his bloodstream with bacteria, and they put him in what is called clinical sepsis, meaning they made him sick. They intentionally made him sick. And typically in sepsis, you get a fever, your heart rate goes up, you need antibiotics and IV fluids. And they induced sepsis, and he was able to basically like breathe his way out of it. It was nuts.
Wait, he breathed himself out of it after he did the cold plunge, or what does it have to do with the cold plunge?
Not in conjunction. He didn't do the cold on this one.
There was no temperature regulation in that part. He just... It's bizarre saying as a doctor, but he literally used his breath to cure himself of sepsis. I mean, it kind of blows my mind. I know in medicine there are things we just don't know and don't understand, but he's like a living anecdote of it, you know? I
tried drinking bleach instead of breathing. And
sure.
It didn't go as well.
I think in your case that might work. I believe in all that stuff. I think, there's so much sort of, as you said, I mean, obviously I believe in science, of course.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But not that I know a lot about it, but I do believe in it.
Yeah.
But I also think that there are things that we don't know, and I think that kind of mind over matter stuff, that it seems to be part of the Wim Hof stuff, the breathing. Sean, he breathed basically bacteria out of his body. Like he just kind of willed it out. And
that's insane.
So you'll see photos of him. He'll have all these guys, and they'll go on these runs in the snow just in shorts with no shoes. And then they'll go sit in a freezing cold river with sort of ice all around like this. Like then they'll sit in,
But we still haven't answered like what that does for the body. Like what does the cold do for the body that makes it what?
Right. So our bodies operate at certain temperatures, and in chemistry, I don't know, Sean, did you ever take like a basic chemistry class? There's like certain reactions that occur at certain temperatures, chemical reactions. So like if you raise the temperature, then certain things can happen. If you lower the temperature, so essentially our bodies operate at room temperature or whatever. But if we lower that temperature, certain processes, innate natural processes that I don't know the specific details.
Wait, so then, Will, do you do the cold plunge to help with the knee or just overall?
I do the cold. I started doing it because, growing up in Canada, we spent a lot of time up at the, this lake with my grandparents way up in northern Ontario. We swam in the lake weeks after the ice had broken. My grandfather would go in every day, and we like cold water. Canadians like cold water, and there is a connection between that and sort of longevity. I have a lot of longevity in my family. Three of my grandparents lived to be north of 95. My great-grandmother died at 105. My grandfather walked every day for an hour in the morning, even when it was sort of 20 below. That cold air, I've always believed that there was something to it. I always have taken the end of my shower to make it cold because it made me it wakes you up, it makes you feel alive. But then you start reading about it and you're like, well, the cold water helps with inflammation. And inflammation is the enemy of all things, right? Inflammation, and I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about at all, Priyanka, so you can sort of help steer me.
I've lectured about this. I love this topic because there's also seasonal components to it. Like, for example, in the wintertime, it's cold, right? But most of us spend our winters under heaters or, not being exposed to the cold. It's during that period that actually we are able to burn brown fat, initiate anti-inflammatory properties. So a lot of people, for example, they gain weight in the wintertime because they're like eating a bunch of carbs and sitting under heaters and not actually being a part of the natural elements. And there's metabolic consequences to that. And so we're supposed to be cold in the winter.
Yeah, I believe that. And I guess I've just always, you look, obviously when you look at athletes, they've been using ice forever. Pitchers, as soon as they get off the mound, they're wrapped in those ridiculous bags of ice on their arms. So it stands to reason, well, why wouldn't you do that with your whole body? And inflammation is at the heart of a lot of, from what I understand. And again, what I understand is a very, very little. I co-host a podcast called Smartless. That's how dumb I am.
Okay. So inflammation, it's part of a mind and body connection. For example, they've done studies on people with depression, and they've actually found high inflammation in their brains. Oh. And so that can impact your mood and how you think. And so, doing things like cold thermogenesis is fine, but it's not like a one-stop shop. Bringing down inflammation is a comprehensive process. So you got to watch what you eat. You got to watch the kind of people you're around. If you're in a stressful job, you got to maybe rearrange the job situation. And if you want to do things like cold thermogenesis, that works too. But bringing inflammation down is a mind-body comprehensive process. And also collective stress can also lead to inflammation. It's very comprehensive. We're all connected in that respect.
And there is a connection. And, I do try to watch what I eat. And then I also watch what Sean eats. And that just makes me ill. But there is a connection, right? I mean, or tell me if there is. Is there a connection? I've always understood between inflammation and certain cancers. Is that is there a line that can be drawn there?
Yeah. Being in an inflammatory state will lead to cellular dysfunction. That's a kind of sort of basic function. Mm-hmm. But cancer is inflammation. People don't also understand things like not getting a good night's rest can totally bring your inflammation up because there's a hormone called cortisol that stays elevated, and that leads to a bunch of other problems.
So you're saying I have 2 years to live. That's where this conversation is going.
Well, I hope to keep you living longer thanks to this podcast, Sean.
Only
that's
on the outside.
The point.
On the outside. I mean, that's Well, here's the other thing I'll say. So the guy who worked on my knee, and I'll call him my knee doctor, he told me when we talked about the cold stuff, he said, don't do the, whatever it's called, the cryo stuff. Don't do that. He said, because that is it's an unnatural level of cold.
You're talking about cryogenics where you walk into a booth and it's freezing,
Yeah, he said, because your body's then is unnaturally cold and your body's going to have to swing back the other way to make up for it. And he said that he doesn't really adhere to that. He thinks that it's too extreme.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, I mean, my kind of philosophy in medicine is that illnesses arise when there's a dysfunction from a otherwise naturally occurring process. So we have evolved on this earth to have certain circadian rhythms and to operate a certain way. And when we fall apart from that, that's when illness arises. So I've never done cryo myself personally, but I could see that argument. I think it's really important to say, the data on so much of this is not super strong. We're really in woo-woo territory. Yeah. But whether pure ice versus cryo, I mean, to me, it logically makes sense. If you say, hey, if you do something more naturally, it's probably going to be better than if you do something really unnaturally. I'd be like, yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I told Sean that I was going to start doing the cold plunge, and he said, cryo me a river.
Jesus. I mean, I'm sorry, you guys who's never listening. I'm so sorry.
Will, I want to ask you, when you started doing the ice baths, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like you just started one day and you sat in there for a long time. You worked your way up to it, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, first of all, it should be pointed out, I just turned 70. So I look okay.
I know. It's funny. You said your grandparents lived up north of what?
Late 90s, yeah.
Late 90s. My grandparents were Irish, so they lived south of 80.
Yeah, there you go. But that's diet and it's environment. It's kind of, Priyanka, what you were talking about, and moderation. My grandparents got a lot of sleep. They took naps, and these days I go to sleep most nights. I'm asleep by 9:30.
Oh, yeah, you cannot call Will. Usually past 8, so 9:30 is really pushing it. Kind of like a child. Like a little baby would go to sleep.
Well, if he's like a child, then, you have many, many more years to live if you're still a child.
What time do you get up, Will?
I'm usually up by 5:30, 5:45. And what I do is, and then I get up and I do the stuff with the kids and I make breakfast, whatever, and do all this stuff and get the kids on their school stuff. And then I go and I work, I do my walk and I come back and I usually now this has sort of interrupted my schedule a little bit. Often what I'll do is I'll take a sauna because I like to do a nice sauna too. And then I go into the cold and I'll go in the first time for like 30 seconds. Then I go out and then I go back in and I'll sit in it for anywhere from 90 seconds to 4 minutes. In the
God,
cold.
How can you handle
and I just
it?
breathe, and it's very sort of meditative. You get to a meditative place.
Was the first time really hard because you're like, what am I doing?
I couldn't do first. Like I have my good buddy Clay. He's always giving me shit because he'll go 5 minutes, and he's like, I'm not happy until my teeth are chattering.
Jeez, wow.
My teeth don't chatter because by the time I get out of there, like I'm in a very kind of zen place. But the difference that I notice, first of all, I get a boost of energy from it. It doesn't mean like I'm shot out of a cannon. I just feel very revitalized.
Yeah.
I think that in the long run, it's going to make me healthier and be better. And even just thinking along those lines, thinking I'm going to be better is going to help me be better.
I believe in that.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. I just think it's important, though, that, especially if anyone's listening, like, well, you know what? Let me just do ice baths, but like keep eating like, a bunch of crappy food and stuff and, like spend all this time indoors and, you can't just do the ice bath and it's going to like solve your life's problems.
No. And I smoke in there. I smoke in there too.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is I should clean out my freezer and just sleep in there.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
That's certainly a lot cheaper. How do you get all the ice? Like, do you just have an ice machine or how do you coordinate
some
that?
person comes with a block of ice in a truck, right? And they deliver in the back.
It's like the old school, like in the prairies with my grandparents. We have a guy with a horse-drawn thing and he brings in a block of ice and then we keep it with sawdust and hope it makes it through the summer.
What privilege.
No, we have an actual, like you'll have for like a hot tub or a jacuzzi, you have like a heater. There's like an actual chiller.
Oh, okay.
So there's not ice in there.
There's no ice, and I keep it at 39 degrees.
Oh my God.
Which is very cold, quite cold for a cold plunge, yeah.
Priyanka, I thought I read somewhere a long time ago or heard or something that the shock to your body is not healthy. Like you shouldn't just like go clothed, take off your clothes and jump into a lake that's 20 below or whatever it is. Like that could kill you. Is that not true?
I don't know if it could kill you, but I think it would be stressful as hell. Like I said, I mean, I tried the ice baths and it was just like too stressful. And I know myself well enough and I'm pretty connected to my body. And I was like, look, I get it. And I understand the science, but it's not for me. And that is, I think, really important to understand. Like what may work for Will may not work for the world, right? Like the best medicine is personalized medicine. Like for you, you need to be drinking bleach to like feel balanced and Will needs to be in ice. So everyone's different. You know what I mean?
We just have to go back to our disclaimer at the top of the show. Please don't drink bleach. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, that is very important. Yeah.
I didn't even know that they sold bleach in In-N-Out because that's where you get most of your food.
Well, they have bleach shakes.
Will, I just want to ask you about what your sleep setup is at home and if you're following good sleep hygiene protocols.
Okay.
What is it like when you sleep at night?
Sure.
Do you know about some of the tenets of like having good sleep? Like what, for example, the room that you sleep in at night, what is it like?
The room that I sleep in at night is dark.
How dark?
It's not pitch black.
And porn is playing 24 hours a day.
Oh, okay. So the porn might be problematic, but
Why? Wait, why?
The appropriate level of darkness at night to sleep. The room should be so dark that when you put your hand out in front of you, arm's length, you should not be able to see your hand.
Wow.
Huh.
That is the amount of darkness that is necessary so that your melatonin levels will rise so you actually feel true physiologic sleep.
I have searchlights on me just because it makes me feel like I'm on stage.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe that's why I don't sleep.
My darkness is
in the inside.
Most of my darkness is on the inside. Yeah, I was going to say most of my darkness is on the.
So you're literally cold and dark.
No, it's quite dark. It depends, but it's not as dark as it should be. Part of that reason is that I keep the door that's closest to me out to the hall sort of slightly open, and there's a light there. because of little kids. And in case because
they're not yours. They're just if little kids in the neighborhood come by. And
if they want to come by and if they just want to say hi and take a selfie. And I say, that's fine. Just take a selfie. Don't wake me, but take a selfie and move on. No, I do a thing, sometimes my older kids are 10 and 12, but sometimes there are issues of like waking up in the night. And so like I want to
you have to
not be
alert.
scared. And so be alert.
Yeah, so you're on watch duty like all the time. So you can't necessarily have it be pitch black. Okay, I got you. Okay.
A little bit. Now it's cold.
It's cold? Okay, what about sound? Can you hear any like irregular sounds? Like, so good sleep, you can have either pure silence, which is kind of hard, or you can have kind of a continuous ongoing sound. Like
I have a
maybe
fan. I have a fan going.
Crickets or something like that. What causes disturbed sleep are like irregular sounds, like a fire truck going by or like someone screaming on the street or something like that.
I started when I was about 34 or something, because I had really noisy neighbors when I lived in Venice. So I got a noise machine that had rain sound. And I got really good at the rain sound, that consistent rain sound, blocked everything out. And I got so good that if I get on a plane and I put in my headphones in and I put rain sound on, like on my phone, I could sleep for 10 hours on a plane. Like,
oh, wow.
I'm the person, most people hate to hear this. I'm the guy who I get into bed, I put my head on the pillow, and I fall asleep.
Yeah, I can't. I'm so
and
jealous.
I don't go through my day. I don't stress out about stuff. I never have. Yeah. I just go right to sleep. I'm kind of a machine in that way. Mm-hmm. So then I changed from the noise machine. Now what I do is through a meditation app, they have some sleep guides to help you get to sleep. And through one of them, I don't know if we can mention it on the podcast, the meditation app.
Yeah,
well, we can always edit it out.
Okay, it's called Meditation for Murderers, and it's no, it's for the
wow, it's got a lot of downloads. I bet
it's not exactly legal. No, on the Headspace app. So I do this thing now. It's quite recent, and they have a few different ones, and they're only about 45 minutes long, and they really work with me. I mean, I'm just gone. So my ritual is this: I get into bed early, usually by 9 o'clock. As a rule, and I've broken it a few times, as a rule, do not watch TV in bed. Don't watch any shows in the place where I sleep. I get in, I read. I read every night a little bit, and then I turn the light off and I turn my thing on and I'm out.
Yeah. So lucky.
Sounds pretty good. Sounds like you have a decent sleep situation going on.
It's not bad. Now, look, we have a baby and we have a total of four kids here in the house. And so it's busy. But what I also do is...
You have the best kids ever. I love your kids.
They're nice kids.
They're the best, coolest, funniest.
They're really happy kids.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And I nap most days.
Speaking of getting knocked out like that, let's see who can knock each other out in this game.
Yeah.
Sean, you really like to move it along.
I do, because I don't want to keep my guests.
Are you waiting for... Is there somebody after me?
No. I just want to respect your time.
You don't have to respect my time.
I know,
Why do you all of a sudden want to respect my time? Whenever have you... Sean, can I tell you something? Priyanka, here's a great story of my sleep. And this will illustrate Sean's sleep. And I don't want to get too much into it because I'm sure he's talked about it. And I love Sean. There are very few people on this planet that I love more than Sean Hayes.
Likewise.
I love him to death. So this morning we had an email that we wanted to talk about some work stuff.
Like 5:30 in the morning.
5:30 in the morning. I text him because I thought, I know Sean wakes up in the middle of the night and then he goes back to bed at like 7.
Yep.
Which is like what they used to do in the old days. And then, so I texted him. He answered. So I FaceTimed him. It was dark. And he answers by saying, "It's 5:30 in the morning, you fucking moron." And I said, "Don't call me a fucking moron at 5:30 in the morning."
Yeah, and my face was right into the camera. I was like, everybody's sleeping. Everybody. You live with one other person.
What a sweet soul you are, Sean.
Yeah.
I know.
All right, and now it's time for Dr. Wali's Hall of Fame. So, Will, this is a game where there are 2 rapid-fire rounds in which you each get 3 questions. The person with the most correct answers will be added to my Wali Hall of Fame. Is everyone ready?
I'm gonna be terrible at this. Go ahead.
Sean's first. So Sean's gonna do the first 3, and then you'll do the next 3. Okay?
Got it.
Okay, Sean, are you
Yeah.
ready, my dear?
Yeah.
All right. Mastication is the word for what activity?
Jacking it.
Close. Chewing.
Chewing?
Yeah, chewing. Mastication is the word for medical term for chewing.
We'll use it in a sentence. Mastication.
Like, my oh my, your muscles of mastication are quite strong.
When I was 12, my mom walked in the kitchen and caught me masticating.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But wait a minute. So you would say you want to masticate some chewing gum?
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
That's crazy.
These are masticator muscles, mastication.
All right. So I was kind of close.
Yeah, I'll give you a half point for that, for sure. Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of game is this?
This is a legitimate game.
Okay.
We've trademarked this game. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Encephalitis refers to inflammation of which organ in the body?
Oh.
Encephalitis.
Encephalitis. It sounds like an inflammation of encephalitis. I don't know, the skin?
Close. The brain. Encephalitis is the brain.
Wow.
Yeah. True or false? Carbonated water is just as hydrating as flat water.
Carbonated water is hydrating?
Just as hydrating as flat water.
Okay. Well, whenever Will and I go out to dinner, I always order according to our personalities. So Will gets flat and I get bubbly. That said, I'm going to guess that's false because doesn't carbonated water have like added sodium, which is salt, which like dries you out?
So they're true.
Oh.
They've done studies on this where they looked at how hydrated people will get with carbonated versus flat water, and it's exactly the same.
Wow.
There might be a few more minerals in carbonated water, but in terms of hydration,
The same.
Wow.
they're equal.
What about my thing about sodium?
Well, just because something has a few more sodium minerals doesn't mean it's going to affect the level that it can hydrate someone.
Yeah,
Or
Thank
dehydrate.
you, Priyanka. Yeah, Sean, just because it's got sodium. First of all, let me also say this. I love that they've done studies on this. Thank God they spent money on that.
A study. They've done a study on it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so Will's up.
Oh, gosh, this is
Okay.
tough. I'm going to be so shit at this.
No, did you see what I just did? I didn't get one right.
Okay, so yeah, Sean, you got a half a point. Yeah, Sean got a half a point. Okay, Will, your turn. If someone has hepatitis A, which organ is affected?
Oh, come on. That's the easiest.
The blood? Which
Organ, which organ?
Sorry, the blood. The heart? Is the heart an organ?
Liver.
Liver.
It's actually
Liver.
the liver.
Sorry,
Hepatitis
liver.
A
That's
is
what I
a
meant,
liver
liver.
issue. Okay.
Jesus.
All right.
God, this.
I've had
this,
hepatitis A.
This game is going to expose how dumb you have to edit
No.
that out. That's the dumbest answer.
Okay. Damage to a part of the brain called the Broca's area can cause problems with what?
Money. When you're broke ass, you're broke ass.
Okay, I will give
That
you
is
a half
so
point
dumb.
for creativity. But the answer is damage to the Broca's area is also known as expressive aphasia. So you have problems with speaking, speech production, or even writing
Oh.
and expressing yourself.
So would a stroke affect the Broca?
So there can be strokes that affect the Broca's area, and it's called expressive aphasia.
Oh.
It's very challenging because you can understand what everyone is saying, but when you try and speak to respond, it's like not possible. So.
Got it.
Okay, final question. True or false? Shaved hair grows back faster, coarser, and darker.
True.
It's actually false.
True. Hang on, let me finish. True, because it's false. You know, the thing is, I'd heard a story. This guy was talking today on the radio over in the UK saying that he'd shaved his head and his hair, and he's my age, a year or two older than me, and his hair had grown back, and it was darker, and he thought thicker.
So Priyanka's wrong.
How is it possible? I just heard it this morning. It's very strange.
Really?
and
Just
he was
this
saying
morning you heard it.
I'm not kidding. This guy who Sean knows I listen to this DJ in the UK. He's a hilarious guy, and he has a podcast guy, Johnny Vaughn, hilarious guy. And he was saying that his hair is growing in so dark and fuzzy now that his girlfriend plays the song Black Velvet all the time because his hair is, and he's got
Really?
he's got white facial hair. And he's like, my hair used to be brown and it's grown back black.
Interesting.
Strange, right?
So there's been a tie.
Oh my God, a tie on the very first. Okay, so this has never happened because we've never done it before. Priyanka, tell us, do you have a tie-breaking question?
Yes. Okay, let's do it. I got to think of a question now, and then whoever answers it correct first is going to be the winner.
Okay. Tiebreaker.
Okay.
Here we go. The first ever hypochondriac tiebreaker.
In 5, 4, 3.
All right, here we go. Folliculitis is the medical term for inflammation of what?
Folliculitis?
Yes.
Folliculitis.
Inflammation of of your fingers.
Folliculitis is the inflammation of your hair.
That is correct, Will.
What?
That is correct.
Follicle.
Yes, inflammation of the hair follicles.
Did
yes.
you just Google that?
No, you saw me.
You did not. How in the world would you know that?
Because you said follicles. I figured follicles.
She said fuck you.
Folliculitis.
All right, we have a winner. Thank you very much, Will. You're now in Dr. Wali's Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
Will Arnett, thank you for being here today. You have been, as usual, an incredible friend. I love you. Thank you for sharing the story about your knee. Thank you for sharing the story about the cold plunge, which I knew you did, but I never quite understood. And now I know a little bit more. I'm still probably not going to do it, but I love that you still do it. And just thanks for being here. We'll chat real soon, I'm sure.
We will chat really soon. Priyanka, thank you so much for having me on the show.
It was a pleasure, Will.
The pleasure was mine.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was just great, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? He's always so great. He's been a friend of mine for years and years and years. I love him so much. One of the funniest people alive. So I knew he would be fun for the show, and I knew that he would have something to share that people could learn from. So I, too, had the similar knee thing, so I was excited to talk more about that. But I've never gone into it with him about all that cold plunge stuff. That's fascinating to me.
Totally. Yeah. No, it was really great to talk about that, too.
What'd you think of Will? You'd never met him, have you?
I had never met him, so it was really a treat for me. It must be so much fun doing Smartless with him every week.
It is. It's super fun to have someone that is so funny and entertaining to be around. We just do bits constantly. I can only imagine it's very exhausting for the people around us. Well, that is our first show today. Thank you, anybody who's listening. Thank you, Priyanka, for being here with me. That means so much. I have so much fun talking to you and learning things. And I only hope that this show will be as helpful to the audience as it is for me.
And speaking of our audience, if you love our show, please subscribe now. You can go to www.apple.co/hypo. That's apple.co/HYPO. We have an amazing season ahead of us with guests like Kristen Bell, Leslie Odom Jr.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin, Mayim Bialik, Tig Notaro, and many, many more, all of whom will be sharing some pretty wild medical stories with a lot of laughs. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Don't worry, be healthy. Bye. Hypochondriactor is a Hazy Mills production, hosted by me, Sean Hayes, and Dr. Priyanka Wali. Our executive producers are Michael Grant Terry and Todd Milliner. Produced by Rebecca Eisenberg, and production and editing is by Rabbit Grin Productions. Original music by Scott Eisnogel and Leor Rosner. This is a Hazy Mills production. All content discussed on Hypochondriactor are the individual opinions of Dr. Priyanka Wali and Sean Hayes and should not be construed as personalized medical advice. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast as medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. Please consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This entire disclaimer also applies to any guests or contributors to the podcast.